I wanted to talk about how I use my solar return as a major reflection point to understand the cycles I'm going through and what to focus on, what background energy the other transits that I hear about through the year really are leading to. So I'm going to share five of my main things that I do because my birthday's coming up. And because it's exactly a month until my birthday, this is when I really dive deep into reflecting. So the first technique I use is I look at my perfection year. Now, perfections is a Hellenistic astrology technique, and in using annual perfections, you get a life area, a house designated for that solar year you're in. And this year is the sixth house. So I reflect on the themes of the sixth house. I look at my natal chart too to help me understand what primary energies, are the sixth house brings to me. And so for me, the sixth house is ruled by the sun. It's ruled by my sun sign Leo. I also have two other planets in there. And the sixth house is about health and routine. And it's insane this year. This year, exactly at the 6 month point too, I got an injury. Um, and throughout the year, also because of this injury, I rethought a lot around health and body and, reset some routine stuff, relearned how to think about health, especially like turning 30. What things were good for me in my early 20s aren't necessarily good for me now because of my injury and because of taking certain physical things more seriously. I have identified specific, really specific, like spinal alignment issues with me. So, needing to understand how important some physical aspects of my life are, I need to carry forward, like doing certain physio things, focusing on certain ways of stretching to maintain a healthy physical body. And this is just such a good example about how the sixth house really does relate to our physical vessel. The other layers of the sixth house is service and daily routine. So building, certain physical things in my daily routine, but reestablishing the way I think daily as well has been a huge focus this year and has been like a big um part of the program I've been developing, Your Personal Astrologer. So the six house themes have really bled into a lot of different areas in my life. I've had a lot of thought around reflection. I've had a lot of reflection around being of service to other people and service to myself as well, dealing with different family stuff. But what's great is, yeah, there's just been so many themes about constantly adapting to daily routines and reestablishing stuff, learning things about that. So now that that perfection year is winding down, this month I'm using it to reflect on like, well, what do I need to keep from what I've learned this year about the sixth house, about my routines, about how I want to be of service to others, how I need to set boundaries of maintaining a certain service to myself. A really great example is actually, I get more pain when I'm too busy, like I'm not focusing on maintaining my like physio when I'm busy and like cooking multiple meals, stuff like that. So I had a chat with my partner. We discussed like, okay, I'm gonna start doing getting like ordering pre-made meals, like healthy pre-made meals sometimes when I know my schedule is getting a little too busy, and that's going to help us out. And so, like maintaining that, keeping that expectation of, oh, hey, I have help. I don't need to do everything by myself. Carrying that forward, but carrying a lot of mindsets forward. And that's important for me to write down. So I encourage everyone at the end, at like the last month before your birthday, to really reflect on the themes of your perfection year and what you want to keep in them. Um, this also means that I'm going into a new perfection year. I'm going into a seventh house perfection year. And this is about relationships. It's also about how your relationship with yourself is a reflection of your relationship with everything else. The seventh house is a little bit more lovey-dovey and ostentatious, maybe a little glamorous. So I've made like lists of like ideal decor or ideal items I want to have, but also ideal partnerships in my business. And I've actually known that I'm heading into a seventh house year for a while. So I also started working with a uh, business accountability coach, social media coach to help me like already get the ball rolling on some of these partnerships to grow my business and to basically attain other partnerships through my clients because I see all of my astrology clients as a partnership as we are mirrors reflecting each other. I learn just as much about myself through working with them as they learn about themselves through working with me. So that is also where I'm recognizing, okay, seventh house perfection year. What are all of the different layers to this seventh house that I can prepare for, recognize are likely to be coming? And this also helps me accept certain changes that are outside of my control. So, for example, partnership coming up, I'm actually starting a whole new job right before my birthday. And that is going to be a partnership with a new manager, new people that become in my work sphere. And so even though this seventh house year isn't about work, it is about relationships. And I already see that forming. So instead of thinking negatively or nervously about going to this new position, I can be like, well, this is aligned. I'm so excited. And so that is just an example of how using this tool of perfections and reflecting before a milestone like your birthday can really help you reframe any negative thoughts into positive thoughts, into recognizing your alignment. So, love that. Perfections is my favorite thing because it keeps things so simple, but super, super powerful and juicy. And that is my first thing that I do when looking at my solar year, is to reflect on perfections. Then my second thing is that I recap significant transits. And how do you know if a transit is significant? There's so many different ways, and different astrologers might hold different value to different types of transits. I look at my perfection year ruler actually first, and depending on what sign your perfection year is in, that planet, you want to look at the transits of that planet. This year, mine was the sun, so literally every month had an important lesson for me. When the sun was moving, certain kazimis were significant. So a kazimi is when a planet meets the sun directly. And we had a few Mercury Kazimis, but on the Jupiter Kazimi, I had a very beautiful um, culmination moment with my family. So reviewing things around that moment. Other significant transits would be when outer planets, specifically outer planets, are always a little bit more heavy and significant. Um, I went through my Saturn return, and I am now in my Uranus square or Uranus trine. I forget. I didn't write it down in my notes, but Uranus moving from Gemini into, or from Taurus into Gemini is significant because my Uranus is in Aquarius, so it would be a trine. So moving out of that Uranus square to trine, um, so recognizing that too, these are important outer planets transiting significant life areas for me or significant points. So my Saturn return first is is at the tail end. So also reviewing how structures in my life have changed. And my Saturn is located in my first house. So my way of self-identity has changed and how I've done that. And it's kind of cool to look back on because I have, changed my skincare routine, changed my makeup routine, done different stuff with my hair, meaning my hair probably doesn't look different for people who know me, but like doing a curly hair routine was really fun for me. And so when I wear my hair, not heat curled, it's new and fun for me, and it's a new way of presenting myself or my appearance changing. Also coming to terms with some other body and appearance issues, getting older, recognizing where where you have grown. Whether that's a different weight distribution, whatever it might be. The first house is like, okay, working and kind of battling with this self-acceptance or like body dysmorphia themed kind of stuff with my first house. So people who have Saturn in Pisces, and are Piscean people, might also resonate with that. But reflecting on that and recognizing, hey, this period is ending. I can move on. How can I make sure I'm moving on in the best way? So now, before my solar return, I'm really focused on confirming, affirming the positive stuff around these appearance, body image, and personal branding, I guess, or personal how do I say it? Like how I present myself, any issues around that, really recognizing and celebrating and affirming how I want to present myself. Aside from body stuff, presenting myself consistently this year has provided so many opportunities for me to go back into like a shadow version of myself, into a people-pleasing version of myself, and I have consistently shown up throughout my Saturn return as, hey, I know this is who I am, and even just like literally like putting that in there in a conversation and being like, well, the way I think is this way, so that's where I'm coming from. I've communicated a little bit and made it really clear that I'm more of a spiritual person, or I love making mistakes. We don't have to look at them as bad. And with changes around work, it's really funny. I definitely have several examples where I've introduced myself to people and said, I'm a problem solver, so I do tend to kind of take things too seriously at first, but then need a second. So if I'm too fast for you, tell me to slow down. Like I've been able to communicate those certain ways of being like, hey, I love this part about myself, so I know I come in authentically right away. And if that's not what we're looking for in that situation, or like that, the busyness, not my authenticity, but like the excitement and the power that I kind of bring first, then let's have a conversation. You don't have to be scared around me, kind of thing. I like people to know that I'm self-aware and flexible, and always willing to, like, I love having those conversations when working with people. And that has really helped me in my out of astrology work life too, to make great contacts and feel like I have solidified myself as a strong individual. And having Saturn in the first house really, really is that big of a deal. Saturn, if you don't work with Saturn when it's in your first house, you're definitely leaning on the people-pleasing side. If you've done the work with Saturn in your first house, then you are a boss ass bitch. And people could be intimidated of you, but if other energies in your chart, it's really that kind of leading by example energy. So Saturn return was a major, major transit. Um, and that's great. That's important. So that's the second thing I look at significant transits. First thing I look at is perfections. Now, the third thing I look at is I look ahead. And I actually haven't done this yet, so I'm going to do that in real time right here. Is to look ahead on my natal chart. Ta-da. And I originally I had like 5 points, but I realized that they're all kind of, some of them were similar or bled into each other. So the third point is looking ahead. Um, I'm just looking for my chart. There we go. Um, Actually, I'm going to share my screen for a second because before we look ahead, I want to look at my last year's solar return chart. So let me share my screen. Actually, not yet. Animate display solar return. So I'm calculating my solar return for 2024. And then we'll calculate the solar return for 2025 and see the difference, see any changes. So your solar return chart is really important for you to observe. Now, which one is it going to show? Okay, so this solar return chart, my birthday is actually August 4th, but this is a solar return chart, which is when the sun is at the exact degree. So it looks like it's a day earlier this year. And so that could happen to you if you use this technique. So what's interesting, the solar return chart shows us some main themes that we're going to work through with this year. And right off the bat, I see like Aries taking up my first house, which isn't my natal rising sign. So Aries being key energy for how I present myself this year, being busy, being a go-getter, initiatory, maybe even like causing some tension with some people. And that's interesting for me to reflect on right now. I love it because I've always been scared that I'm revealing some stuff to clients that can hit them hard. And that's exactly what Aries does. It initiates, but sometimes that comes through like being annoying or saying something like, oh, I don't want to think about that right now. Um, so that's really interesting, this year having an Aries rising really speaking to this powerhouse energy I've been feeling. My solar return having, before we get into the third house, my sun and moon in my solar return chart being in Leo. And this really speaks to emotionally, I've been saying all year, emotionally, I've been so happy. And I think that really encompasses Leo's energy of joy and generosity and looking on the bright side. So this really relates to a lot of my regular, natal placements. But having the moon sign in Leo attributes to this year having been emotionally positive, despite everything being having this emotion, this like natural joy to it, which is really beautiful to see. Um, there are other things I could get into, but that's kind of the simplest way to discuss it. And then this year, having a conjunction in my natal chart with Mars and Jupiter also really speaks to initiating a lot around conversation and mindset. My There was a significant transit last May that I did write about where or no, it was the solar eclipse in Sagittarius during Gemini season. So having this transit here and knowing about that transit, because I pay attention so much, I remember this transit in May 2024, so just before my birthday last year really emphasized philosophy to me. And it was like this moment of like, hey, remember how important philosophy is to you, your life experience. And this year I have been bringing that more into my work. I have been learning more in my personal life and bringing philosophy, like Hellenistic philosophy, just learning about philosophy and its relationship with history and mindfulness and applying that to my own life and then bringing it into my astrology work as well. And I believe this conjunction is what supports that because it's in the third house. The third house is about communication, the mind and how it works, taking action with Mars there of reframing a lot of my mindsets and being able to communicate my thoughts around this as well. Bringing Jupiter in there being like an abundance of thoughts, like it's been a lot. But but it being joyful, playful, easygoing, not too serious, it being flexible. So that definitely, yeah, 100% my solar return chart, those themes have come through. Mercury being in Virgo, bringing that focus on family and nurturing and health and stuff too. So now let's check out my solar return for this year. Let's maybe I'm gonna animate it forward. Okay, I can't, so I just have to share a different bad boy. So looking at your solar return chart gives us this extra information of how's this year different, what's showing up. And this is actually like a real time, like I have never I haven't looked at my solar return chart for this year yet. So this is kind of scary. Okay, rising. in Cancer, which can tell us a lot. It can tell us that this is more spiritual. Cancer traditionally rules my house, my fifth house, and of course my 12th house through my sun sign. And through my Scorpio placement, that's my moon sign. I'm just going to count backwards. So this is what I would do is, look at this chart and knowing my big three, kind of examine where some of these different changes influence my natal placements. So 5, 12, 11, 10, 9. Ninth house activations through my natal chart with this Cancer stuff because Cancer is just so new to me. So it would activate my 12th house, 11th house, and fifth house. Yeah, fifth house. And so me having a Cancer rising, I think would really show up, and I'm going to use this video next year to compare. I think it's going to show up as me maybe being a more emotional, more compassionate forward, like kind of really leaning into either, motherhood as well could be an option, but also like leaning into nurturing other people and coming instead of being kind of blocked and kind of letting other people take what they want from what I say, being able to kind of talk to people saying, I see you in a more sensitive light. Let's get into it. Let me help nurture you. But I don't know if I want that. It could also represent Cancer being a little closed off sometimes, and having those emotional boundaries, which I do feel coming. It could represent this year me presenting myself, yeah, like I said, like putting my emotions forward, setting those boundaries. But with Venus and Jupiter here as well, this is interesting because it could also represent Cancer is also a foundational sign, and we're in Cancer season right now. So, and it's been a powerful season for me. But Cancer, on the rising sign is the first, water sign of the zodiac. So it is flexible, but it's also knows who it is at its core. And I feel that this year. But I think it can allow me to set those boundaries with Jupiter and Venus there. I think it's also about bringing joy and tenderness, um, and really solidifying some of these foundations I'm building in my personal beliefs and foundational stuff in my career as well, in my business. The sun itself, the sun and Mercury are in Leo. Mercury, my natal Mercury is in Leo, so this is great. It's kind of like a Mercury renewal, like really establishing this new layer of my communication that I've developed over the last year, but it's creating a trine to the moon and having a moon in, I think, um, before it was in Leo, so another fire sign. But this year it's in Sagittarius, so it kind of develops this philosophy-minded emotional experience. So that really lends to my career goals and makes me feel good about bringing in philosophy into my astrology work, teaching it more, working with it more on a personal level. Now, up here with career, Aries moving from that first house experience last year to this 10th house experience, I think that would really show how this year I created the foundational experience through my experience. And now this year is about applying all of those things to my career, standing out a little bit in career as well, beginning new structures, like because we see this lineup on the solar return of, the midhaven being conjunct to Neptune and Saturn retrograde, it really would be about bringing in ideas that maybe don't get get a good reputation at first, but have a slow burn for sure and have an impact. We do see this grand trine as well with Mars in Virgo, and Uranus in Gemini and Pluto. So this really does speak to positive transformation, my actions, my words, bringing positive transformation that is a little bit more hidden, spiritual, subconscious, slow. So basically, this is a great year for people to come to me as an astrologer because my information will be powerful. But having Mars in in the third house is in Virgo is really important and beautiful. My natal Mars is in Libra, so it kind of shows that like I'm ending some type of cycle around action still. There's still this slower cycle in the background around action, and I'm really coming to the end of some lessons around motivation and action. But it would also show that my motivations are still locked in that Virgo-centric energy of taking care of my body, continuing that theme this year. Even though it's ending, this is still like showing me that I am able to communicate my needs more, communicate and understand the needs of others more. And with Mars being there, being able to associate the action better. Something about that feels really good. So that's a lot of juicy information for me. But I hope that that little example shows you the importance of looking at your solar return charts and the clarity you can get. But now I can also set some goals because I've seen that solar return chart. I'm able to be like, okay, what from this energy, I think I'm good to, I'm safe to set career goals, and I'm safe to set and career goals could be financial as well, but having not having the second house really activated is more like, okay, just focus more on your message and your actions. So that's how I would maybe temper that. Is like my career goals could be more focused on what I do rather than what I'm making. Um, and stuff like that. Then my last tip would be to also set goals around knowing the major transits of this year. So I know that Uranus will stay in Gemini. I know that Saturn is in Aries, and Aries being in my career center, that's where the goals I would create would be more around my career. My seventh house is traditionally ruled by Virgo, so Mercury. And because my seventh house is that perfection year, I would be using Mercury transits to set some goals too. So I would be looking at where Mercury is retrograde. So I'll be doing this after I make the video because Mercury moves pretty fast. But I would be using my perfection year ruling planet, looking at its transits, and if it's retrograde, really focusing on what goals I can make around that theme and noticing throughout the year, like writing notes in my calendar, like check where Mercury is around your goals. And maybe even using Mercury to help me plan when to focus on some things. And that is a little bit more detail-oriented work. But all of this kind of stuff you can do with me in a consultation if you write that that you saw this video and you want to do this stuff specifically. It's really easy for me to do. I'm here to help you, but I just wanted to share what I do as an astrologer to prepare for my solar return because doing this work for the past 7 to 8 years has really improved my life. And like I showed in my last year's solar return chart, I have been able to achieve a lot of emotional peace and happiness by examining this. And been saying that all year. It's like I feel really a lot of shit's going on, but I feel really good because I've been aware of it. Or I've been mindful of the time and been able to work with acceptance of, okay, this is happening. And the thing I really want to focus on, its time is coming. I know around the time area that it will come in, for example. So doing this work has really, really helped me. And I hope this video I know it's free form and not like a lecture or organized, but I hope this gave you some examples of how you can work with your astrology in such a powerful way, especially around your solar return, to gain that confidence and clarity that will give you peace of mind and happiness over the year ahead. So thank you for watching if you've watched this whole video, and I'll see you later.